Thank you. Good morning. My name is Cal Stuart. I am the chairman of the Prince George's County Soil Conservation District. Just a wee bit of background so you'll understand where I'm coming from. Prince George's County is the county that surrounds Washington, D.C. to the east on three sides. Prince George's County is made up of 9 legislative districts, 8 of which are predominantly urban, and 1 of which is preserved forever for agriculture. We have a very active agricultural program in Prince George's County, but we also service soil and water conservation in the 8 urban districts of Prince George's County. We take the philosophy in our soil conservation district that there's just as much, if not more, pollution coming from non-agricultural point sources as there is agriculture, and we refuse to let agriculture bear the brunt of the blame for something they're not responsible for. In that regard, in Maryland, we have a number of regulatory agencies. Now, Maryland is a heavyweight county government state, much unlike some of the places where you folks are from today. So we have Prince George's County government regulates and enforces. The Maryland Department of Agriculture has regulatory functions. The Maryland Department of the Environment has regulatory functions. The Maryland Department of Natural Resources has regulatory functions. And the Health Department in Maryland obviously has regulatory functions. Many of these state regulatory agencies seem to enjoy citing a violator and laying out the requests and the demands, then making sure it happens. And in Maryland, from time to time, we are solicited by state agencies to do the end-of-the-line dirty work of enforcement. And for the most part, Maryland and our 24 soil conservation districts say, thanks, but no thanks. You cited them, you can enforce it. We're not going to deliberately violate our trust with our cooperators. It's sort of your problem. We have several counties in the state where the Soil Conservation District has taken over some regulatory functions for the Maryland Department of the Environment, but it's problematic. We're not in the enforcement business in Maryland. Now, in Maryland, we have a law that says if you disturb more than 5,000 square feet or 1,000 cubic yards of dirt, 100, excuse me, thank you, Steve, cubic yards of dirt, you have to apply for a grading permit. But you can't get a grading permit without a soil erosion and sediment control plan. And the law says that the erosion and sediment control plan must be prepared and approved by the Soil Conservation District. So voila, there we are. Another law in Maryland also says that the Soil Conservation District can charge for the erosion and sediment control plan, and can charge for any amendments to it, can charge for any renewals of it, and that sort of puts us deep in the urban work area. Now, in Prince George's County, we have 18 full-time employees in our Soil Conservation District, 9 of which are dedicated to our urban program. And we cooperate very carefully with the county government in all aspects of urban control. The County Department of the Environment has a bevy of inspectors. We train those, we being the Soil Conservation District, trains those inspectors. but the inspectors represent the county, but not us, as they go out and do the regulation end of the continuum of planning, implementation, and regulation. Now, as far as the state goes, the the rural programs are, of course, voluntary. And we are in a position where if a rural program goes really bad, what do? We report that to the Maryland Department of the Environment, or we report it to Prince George's County, and we let their regulatory function deal with this really bad, non-cooperating cooperator, okay, that we really have just failed miserably to try to do anything with. And we are not prosecutors. I'm a defense attorney, okay? We're not prosecutors, and we sure are not going to do anything we can avoid violating the trust that we've built up over the years in the agricultural community in that regard. Maryland implemented a Water Quality Act of 1998, okay, 19 years ago. And the Water Quality Act is a mandatory statute in Maryland that says if you realize in excess of $2,500 of agricultural income from your property, or you have 8+ animal units, and an animal unit is 1,000 pounds, okay? So a lot of ponies, few horses. You have to get a nutrient management plan. Now, we consult on the nutrient management plan, but it is written in Maryland by private consultants who are licensed. The Prince George's Soil Conservation District is the only district in Maryland that is licensed itself to do nutrient management plans, and that gives us legitimacy in helping and in consulting, but we don't write them. We let either the University of Maryland or private consultants do that. And as far as whether you got it or not, it's kind of not our business. So that kind of is where we are in Maryland. We are the beneficiary of a couple of exceptionally good state laws that open the field for the individual soil conservation units to do more than non-profit agriculture. When I say non-profit, I mean doing agricultural work genuinely doesn't make the soil district any profit. The urban sector is completely different. And let me tell you the key to it. All urban development is done on borrowed money. Think about it. Almost everything is borrowed money. That means that every day has a cost. And if you bring me your plans, and there you go, and we review them and approve them or turn them back to you in 3 days, and that's what we do, you are as happy as a pig in a mud puddle, because it's only cost you 3 days of interest on that borrowed money. If I turn your plans back to you in 47 days, you've paid 47 days of costs that I'm done. All right? So the key, in our opinion, and it's been very successful, is if I can give you your plans back in 3 days, you don't care what I charge. You don't. You're happy, because you're then going on to the next step and can get mad at the county department of licensing when it takes them 2 months, okay? But we're champions. And so the key is, we have found that if you're going to do non-agricultural work, you're basically working for people that are working on borrowed money, and every day they're paying the bank what they've drawn down. So that is where we are, and again, from a regulatory standpoint, let some other sheriff in town do that, not us.
Awesome. Mr. Baldwin.
Good, thank you. Good morning. My name is Robert Baldwin, the Executive Director for Delaware Association of Conservation Districts. We maintain the beaches for Prince George's County.
Robert, move the mic closer.
And you do a damn good job, I'll tell you.
DC appreciates that as well.
Move the mic closer,
Leave
Robert.
your money going. But since we're a neighboring state to Maryland, a lot of what Cal said does pertain to Delaware, so we think we do it just a little bit differently. We only have 3 counties, and all of our counties are involved in regulatory programs, whether it's stormwater management or nutrient management. So we cover the urban side as well as the rural side. Our stormwater law was passed in 1990, so we're not relative newcomers, but we haven't been in the game as long as Maryland. But we had a little difference in that when the law was being crafted and regulations were being developed, the conservation districts were at the table, and we set the law and regulations up closer. Sorry. So, should I tell my beaches joke again, Captain?
Yeah, nobody was paying any attention to that.
So our law and regulations were set up with our conservation district supervisors at the table who crafted out some pretty unique features of our law that gave us the ability to work approving erosion sediment control and stormwater plans, inspecting erosion sediment control plans, doing the education and training for erosion sediment control and stormwater management plans, and having the option to do enforcement, but also having that ability to pass it off to a state agency. And to this date, 27 years later, they still do not do enforcement. We'll do what we call compliance. We'll help people in any way we can. We'll get right to the mat with them, but when they say we're not interested, we write a nice little letter to the Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Control saying, Joe Smith is no longer working with the Conservation District. Please assume the responsibilities for erosion sediment control and stormwater management on this piece of property. And then we go like that. Anxiously waiting for them to come back into compliance so we can continue to help them to finish their project and get the thing built out. It's kind of unique to what we do. And this is the same thing with nutrient management. We have a 75-year history of helping people and building relationships over many generations, particularly on the ag side. And the last thing they want to do is jeopardize it, because priorities come and go, administrations come and go, cabinet secretaries come and go, staff come and go, but these relationships have endured, and the districts hold those in the highest of that's their crown jewels, is those relationships working with those people. Now, in the same thing, we got a statewide nutrient management plan, mandatory nutrient management plan for everybody in Delaware who operates more than 10 acres or has, like Cal talked about, animal units. There's all this criteria. Again, the same thing. The districts have the ability to write nutrient management plans free of charge to any cooperator that walks through the front door. We'll help them implement that. We'll help them either through district planners, which we have on our staff. We'll help them with the NRCS staff. But if they're found out of compliance, again, it's no longer their responsibility. And at that point, then it is turned over to the Delaware Department of Agriculture, different state agency, to enforce the provisions of the Delaware Nutrient Management Law. We've got quite a few staff and supervisors here, so I would encourage them to chime in as well as ask questions both in this room and out of the hall. So while we don't all have our white shirts on today, you'll recognize us. I'll stop right there because Cal saved me a lot of trouble explaining, because we do so many things similar to the way Maryland does.
Great, thank you. Matt, do you want to?
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Just as a backgrounder, and it was mentioned early on about where we're located, and the Northeast has its own uniquenesses. I mean, it's very varied in terms of where we all come from. The district that I represent Is anyone, just raise your hand has anyone ever driven the Lincoln Tunnel or Holland Tunnel as you go in and out of New York City? Just raise your hand. Well, welcome to heaven, as I would say. The district I represent is called Hudson, Essex, and Passaic. It's 3 counties, but those 3 counties contain almost 2 million people. We are one of the 10 largest, I believe maybe even the 5 largest in the United States in terms of total population. In a very compact area. New Jersey is already the most densely populated state in the country. I have one county in my area which is on 47 square miles, which has more people than the state of Vermont by about 50,000 people. So Vermont, 625,000, Hudson County, 675,000 on 47 square miles. So square miles to Vermont is 67 people per square mile. That's over 14,000 people per square mile. So that average, folks, is on par with places like Seoul, South Korea, Mexico City. We're talking about places that are extremely compact, where the land doesn't just go out, it goes up. And that means everybody, and I mean everybody, is fighting for their spot, whether it's commuting in and out of New York City or wherever they happen to be going. On the flip side, my district has some of the most rural area, and I'm going to repeat something I said at yesterday's meeting. If I took you to the upper reaches of Passaic County, which borders with New York State, I would take you to a rural area where the largest township in the state of New Jersey, West Milford, has over 75 square miles of just about pure wood areas. Pine woods, lakes, streams, whatever you want to call it. It's extremely bucolic, and it's extremely pastoral in many different ways. So there is a real divergence of people in the district that I represent. But more importantly, there's over 80+ ethnic groups, of which English may or may not be the first language. So a good bit of what we do, and I said this yesterday, and I amplify it to our staff. It's a quote that my father left with me many, many moons ago, and I've repeated it to my family. We're all born with 2 ears and 1 mouth. Unfortunately, in New Jersey, it's the 2 mouths and 1 ear routine, okay? I'm sure you probably met some of those people, all right? I know I see them every day, all right? And there's a tendency sometimes for people to really get ahead of themselves without taking the time to listen. And it's that extra 30 seconds that can make all the difference. And I want to amplify this because I've served not only on the appointment side, we have an appointed boards in the state of New Jersey. They're not elected, but I have served in elected capacities. And I will tell you personally that the most trying thing to do, but it's something that you have to do as an elected person, especially at the council or town level, city levels. I've been on my own council of 85,000 people and my own school board, and there is nothing more intense, folks, than being on your own school board. Anybody who's ever done that, if you're in this room, believe me, whatever your life is like, you have at least 2 extra points when you meet St. Peter, okay? I mean, going in, okay? Because you're going to meet the customer eyeball to eyeball, and that is the ultimate, discussion point. Most of our supervisor meetings, unless people have an interest in a particular project, will not come by to the meetings. They are advertised as required by law. There's an opportunity for them to provide their comments, but in reality, they're not going to be there. But the most important thing I will say to everybody in this room, because everybody is, involved in a long ways of serving their states or their regions or their counties, is you have to know your customer. You really have to know your audience. Because when I came on 31 years ago as a supervisor, the audience that lived in Hudson, Essex, Passaic then, and the audience that lives in Hudson, Essex, Passaic today, those are different players, different needs. We went through